I am here.
Josh, are you still with us?
I am with you.
I don't see a video.
I can put on the video. 1 second. I'm here. Sorry, I sit all day, so I was cleaning the garage.
Are you muted or are we having audio problems here?
Audio
Hear
problem.
you.
You can't hear me?
Dennis can hear us.
Yeah, but we can't hear you, Dennis. That's the problem. We can't hear Joshua.
Let me reboot.
What happened?
That's because my microphone was muted.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear Tom and I can hear Joshua.
You can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Wow. Okay, so there's some weird audio problems going on.
All right. Yeah,
Oh, man.
this has been a big fail.
Can you hear me in the meeting room?
I can.
Greg? Can Greg hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, something's going on down in the meeting room. They can't hear anybody online down in the meeting
All
room.
right, let's see.
But we can hear them.
No, we could, the problem was we couldn't hear you, but now we do.
Hallelujah. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Loud and clear.
All right, so
Fantastic.
not the strongest speaker, so if we can keep the chatter in the background down to a minimum, that'd be appreciated. Joshua, maybe it should have been under new or old business, but let's bridge the gap. And you wanted to tell us about the conference? Let's start with that.
Sure. Yeah. So Northeast Conference. Registrations have been coming in. We've got about 70 models registered. About 100 people coming. Currently it's 48, but it will change to 50 on 4/19. So you got to get your payment in if you don't want to pay the extra $2. And you can do that online at the website, PhiladelphiaShipModelSociety.com. And you can follow the events. It's also on, there's a link right on the front page to get you there. So any questions, you can feel free to reach out. So that's, go ahead.
So I have it on our club's website calendar as well.
Great. So it's yeah, April 30th, 9 a.m. Port and Starboard. So we're looking forward. We're really excited about the speaker we have. Todd really lined that up for us with the Coast Guard. So it's the Sail Master. Don't ask me about her rank. I don't remember her rank. Yeah, and then leading into that, I mean, we have ModelCon. You'll get if you're going to the Northeast Conference, there will be a ModelCon flyer in your swag bag as a reminder. So, and that's August the 6th.
As long as you have the spotlight, you can move on to your other things, models, whatever you'd like to present.
Oh boy. All right, let's see here. Did you gotta allow me to share screen, please?
Oh, okay. Done.
Okay. Let's just do screen. And see how well I did. All right. So this is a little project I did, and I got to remember to open with photos of a it's a little resin project I did. So I just recently got a 3D resin printer, and this was more of an exercise of can I print it? And I found a really nice plan for a pibber boat, and it was basically, you know, an effort. What's that?
Just background chatter, keep going.
Yep. It was about 40 pieces or so. And, you know, printing, it's not really all that straightforward. I mean, I had a few fails before I got everything to be successful. So this was actually all of my my redo plate, all of the things that failed the first time I attempted to print them. So there's a little bit of science to 3D printing in terms of how you have them elevated and supported. And the problem is like, you see this canopy over here on the right. Well, there's a lot of fragile parts in there, and then you got all these supports. It's a little bit of an archaeology project to kind of dig it out of there without destroying it. It's a curing process, takes about 2 minutes, and I was very excited to get the canopy out, so I cured it immediately. And these were a couple of my attempts. And this is kind of an overview of all the pieces before I kind of put it together. This was an attempt at a turret gun, probably one of the better attempts. So that was kind of my little 3D project. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, if I were to try to, I think the 3D, it really shows the versatility of the 3D printer, but there's, you know, some parts here that I wouldn't necessarily do in resin, like all of this, you know, erector set to keep the canopy up. I probably would do that in brass, and maybe the, you know, the railing around the back in brass, but really shows some good detail. Even in the cockpit, you can see like the steering wheel back in there and had some hooks and things. And, you know, it was a fun project.
What's the overall length of that?
This is about 4 inches.
Yep.
So the funny thing about the 3D printer is, you know, if you program it with the right credentials, you know, when you kind of scale it up, scale it down, and all that, it'll tell you how much it's going to cost you to print it. And I went to go print it at 100%, and it was like just this front bow piece, and it was like, it's going to cost you $13 to print this out. And I was like, whoa, I didn't want to spend $40 on this project. So I scaled it back about 50%. So that's that piece. And then the other thing that I've been working on was, so I don't know if you guys remember, I might have shown it before, but per my Model Ship World posting, I get to this about once a year. So this is my IJN Megami. This is probably the way you saw it last. And this was the bugger that stopped me on it. It was a anti-aircraft gun 1350. This is probably one of my initial ones where I was happy that it just came together. But a year ago, I attempted this and destroyed 3. But this time, it's kind of funny when you come back to something and it's like you're remarkably better somehow. And I completed 8 of them successfully. I need 10, so I ordered another sheet. I can do another 12 and pick the best 8. That's kind of my plan with that. So about 8 pieces to put that together. So that's that. Pretty small. And then I was having so much fun. I started the AA gun platform. Here's kind of the instructions you can see. Let me see if I can rotate this. Anyway, this completely replaces the plastic piece. And you have little boxes you get to fold up where the squares are. Your anti-aircraft guns go where the circles are. Some range finders go in these barrel looking things. Got to put the railing on. And yeah, you get to make a box with a door. And then on the bottom, that's where the real fun begins, where you get to like put all the supports in. Then there are these little itty bitty triangles, and you just feel like you win the lottery every time you place one. So there's the box with a door. And I love the detail though. The photo etch is really, really rewarding. And anyway, these are doing the barrels and the this nice tool that I use to help kind of, I forgot to anneal this one. So this one really struggled. And then I remembered that you should anneal these things and it makes your life a lot easier. So pulled the smokestack down. I'm going to probably working on that as well as the AA gun deck. And that's what I'm doing. So
Fascinating.
Joshua, can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Good, good. The 3D printer, what kind of resolution can you get with it? How many microns? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, 50 microns.
50, okay.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where they're at right now.
I'll call you later on, or we'll chat soon. I want to talk to you about that process.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been an education.
Yeah, well, I don't want to learn too much. I just want to be able to do it.
I know exactly what you mean because it's been a big part of why I haven't like purchased like a mill. It's like I don't want to learn how to use it. I just want to build things. So,
All right.
yep.
Anything else you wanted to show?
No, not right now. Thank you.
Okay. Would like to go next?
I got something if you want to see it.
No, we don't.
It'll be real quick. I want to do a screen share if I can.
Should be able to.
Okay, you see that?
Yep.
What does it look like?
Titanic.
It's a Titanic.
It's in print on the upper left of the box.
So
The whole right, the whole end of it too.
right. Yeah, this is way outside what I normally do. Turns out that went to lunch with a good friend of mine, and he says, "Hey, I want to show you something." And he shows me a photograph of a Lego Titanic, and he says, "I want one." I says, "You want me to build you a Lego Titanic?" He says, "No, I want you to build one like you built." So went around and around with it. Anyway, make a very long story short, I got this mini craft kit. I got the wooden decks. I got 7 sprue of photo etch. But my ulterior motive with this is 1, he's doing my landscaping this year. And 2, I'm getting really proficient at using an airbrush. And this was all done with an airbrush. I learned a lot in a very short time. One thing I learned was that if your pressure is too low, it doesn't spray real well. And it's interesting because I went to a seminar and they were saying, "Oh, I spray at 15, 20 PSI. And then I'm reading some of the paperwork that came with my airbrush and it says, well, we typically spray at 25 PSI and we get really good results at 30 PSI. So that therein lay the problem. I'm using a Model Flex paint or Marine Flex paint, which comes from Badger. I got 2 Iwata airbrushes. They're both identical, except that one is gravity feed and one is siphon feed. And I will tell you that the siphon feed has gone back into the box and it'll probably stay there for quite some time because I'm not spraying a huge quantity. And that airbrush, while it's effectively the same airbrush, is a real pain in the butt to clean. The gravity feed is so much easier to clean. I've gotten down to a process where I could clean that airbrush in 3 minutes. So it works well. The other thing I learned is that you don't have to use airbrush cleaner for everything when you're using acrylics. Distilled water works fine. I use Model Flex paint on this, except for the yellow line because I was too stupid to order it. So what I did is I took Vallejo and I diluted it 1-to-1 with distilled water. That was a little bit too light. It was splashing all over the place. You'll find out with this Titanic kit that there's a lot of raised rivet detail and plating detail and that kind of thing. And it's real tough to mask it correctly. I did learn, don't use regular painter's masking tape, blue tape. Go out and buy some, Tamiya or Vallejo. First time I used it, and I'm sold on the Vallejo. It's almost like cellophane with a little bit of adhesive on it, and it does stretch. So like going around the stern, if you could see my mouse here, going around the stern, etc., you could actually stretch it a little bit. You could fold it a little bit, and then you could burnish down the folds, and it works real well. So something that I came up with. This hull, one of the things with the Titanic is there is a plethora of information online. I'll probably be doing something in Model Ship World about it. I will tell you that I drilled out every single porthole on this hull, every single porthole. I added portholes that were missing. This is based on information from the internet, and I closed portholes that weren't there. Interestingly, when Minicraft first did this kit, they were Academy at the time, they used the plans of the Oceanic rather than the Titanic. And while they're both sister ships, they're not identical sisters. So when Ballard found the wreck, they also found some of the Titanic plans, and I was able to accurize the hull based on the information that they got. So it's coming along nicely. It took a while to get started. I will tell you that if you want to buy all the sprue and stuff, you're looking at almost $450 between paint, the photo etch, the wooden decking that I got that I didn't take a photograph of, but I'll show it to you next month. The wooden decking that I got, just the decking was, the kit was $88 and the decking was $100. So, it's not for the faint of heart. I will also tell you, you note on the box here, it says, this is not a toy, okay? This is interesting because I look at ratings a lot, and I bought the kit from Amazon. If you look at the ratings from the kit, it comes out at 2 or 3, it comes out like 3.5 stars. So you go and you read some of the ratings, and don't you know the rating said, I purchased this for my son, and he can't possibly paint it, blah, blah, blah. Well, the product information says this is not a toy. There's a logo on the box that says this is not a toy. It's not a toy. So my point to all of this is that these ratings are really kind of, it's awfully difficult. Ryland and I have talked about this a few times. It's pretty difficult, like somebody will see a box cover, and he'll go out and build a Jaquita victory kit, and he'll find out that he can't do it because it's the first model that he ever did, and he'll give it a horrible rating. This is just, so you gotta look at these ratings with a grain of salt. So I'm really pleased with how it came out. I talked to Gene Berger because the next thing I'm going to do with this hull is I'm going to put using crystal clear in all of the portholes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the decals on now. And so Gene Berger gave me some tips on putting on the decals, and that's where it stands right now.
You're right about ratings. I mean, it's a bit of exaggeration, but I've seen ratings on Amazon where the comment is almost as bad as, I bought this shovel and it did a horrible job of cleaning my deck,
I will tell you, for example, some of the things that you find, like you could get plan views of this. And one of the things that I found, which was really interesting, is, they have locator holes where you drill location holes where you're supposed to attach the bilge keels. Well, the bilge keels, now realize that this is a 31-inch long model. The bilge keels per the kit were actually located a full ½ inch too far aft. Okay. And if you would have did that, the bilge keel would have interfered, and I put these on. These are not in the kit. I put these on. These are the circ water intakes, and this is the circ water discharge. What's interesting about the circ water discharge is after the ship hit the iceberg and they were lowering lifeboats, one of the lifeboats got close to the circ water discharge and it pushed it underneath another lifeboat. So one lifeboat was lowered on top of another. Just an interesting factoid as you go through this. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Oh, thanks for sharing.
Nice model.
If you think that, that's an investment, you should look at the trumpeter kit. of the Titanic.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you see, well, the thing is that, people develop the capability to do a lot of stuff by scratch. But when you're working in some of these kits, there's such quality stuff out there that you could, why, I'm not a purist in any way, shape, or form, but a lot of the stuff that's available online, just makes the job look really well. Of course, there are limitations to photo etch as well. I've seen wooden ship models with photo etch on, and photo etch is completely two-dimensional. So if you use some photo etch for certain things on a wooden ship model, especially at the larger scales, if you get the 1/4-inch scale, it frankly looks horrible. So, you gotta use your judgment.
Pick your battles.
Well, I don't know why you're fidgeting over budgets. This is a hobby.
Yeah. But thanks for your help, Gene. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Since we've been online, anyone else online want to share?
Can I share, Greg,
Pardon?
can I share just
That Joe?
briefly something?
Yep.
Hang on. Can you let me share the screen, please?
You already are. We already see your screen.
We see your Sharpie.
Okay, that's what I want to share. Hang on.
All right.
Why am I not able?
This could get interesting.
I'm having trouble sharing.
We see your screen. I think we're not seeing the right screen.
Yeah, I know what to do. It's just not even coming up on my camera is not pointing at.
You're holding your jaw right.
Click on your Zoom.
I may have to withdraw, not to undo it. Well, let me just tell you what I'm going to do. This is
Stop sharing and try again.
all right.
Stop
hang on.
sharing, minimize everything, and then try again.
Okay. Let's try this.
We're seeing the student right now.
Yeah, I think he wants to share something else though.
Yeah, let me just say this. Rylan and Dave Chemlow helped me identify the Florida Sharpie fishing schooner. I've been plinking away at it since the fall, and I'd like to come back. I'm still rigging, and one of the biggest problems with this model is it's a very fragile model. It's somewhere between 60 and 80 years old. And the problem is every time I try to tighten up rigging or something pops or something else gives somewhere else. But I'm coming close. And Greg, I'll just give you a heads up in the near future, maybe come back and cover it again, okay?
Sure.
All right, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on here with my video.
No problem. The only other person online that might be sharing would be you, Dennis. Did you have anything today? Nope. Okay. Gene, you want to go next?
I wish got the other one.
Oh. All right. I think Ron brought that in.
Oh, the
Skip check.
All right, give me a second to change the camera, Ron. Let's see.
Does everybody know about Deltaville?
Yeah.
Several years ago, and I don't know how long ago, really, Deltaville Maritime Museum, Waterman's Museum burned. Workboat models and some models that didn't really need there at all. So they got rid of those, blamed it on the fire. But I restored some of the others, and one was a Willie Bennett. That started me off on workboats, Chesapeake Bay workboats, the tongers and the dredgers and all of those. So I ended up with 5 actually in various stages of construction and only one finished, and that was a simple, just open. But guy came by the model shop last year, late last year, and he is the curator of the Ocean View Station Museum in Norfolk. It's down off Granby Street near the Ocean View Park. And they're expanding a little bit, and he wanted a skipjack display in the museum. So I sent messages to everybody, and I think the only response I got back was from Marty, and Marty said, you got 4 of them. Well, you do one of yours. And I decided that's what I would do. So I started finishing this one. Now, this started out as sort of a Willie Bennett, but I had already changed a bunch of stuff on it to begin with. I didn't want to give him a Willie Bennett. Everybody's got a Willie Bennett. So as I was building it, I did one of the things that I did for the Willie Bennett in Deltaville, in the winder, the dredge winder part, I built cylinder Palmer engine. Now, the reason they don't come in kits is that's typically closed and you can't see it. So the kits don't give you one. But if you spend a little time studying the Palmer engines, you can make one fairly easily. So I put that one on, and that was my pièce de résistance for the one in Deltaville and also pretty much for this one, although this is not quite as neatly made. Another part had to do with the horns, the steering devices. And looking at the plan, especially Ben Langford's, I thought, well, that looks a whole lot like an eyeglass hinge. I went to the dollar store and bought a pair of dollar eyeglasses and pulled the hinges, I guess, off and turned them into horns. So I like that too. But in other respects, it's certainly not the Willie Bennett, but I couldn't think what to name it. Talking to my sister, Deborah, her name was going to be Deborah Roseman Lewis. Look, Roseman was a family name. But my father signed her birth certificate and put Rose on it. So her name is Deborah Rose, and I thought that's a good name for a workboat. So I named it Deborah Rose after my younger sister, who has just moved from New York to Franklin, North Carolina. And she was pretty pleased with that. So hopefully when we do the presentation, which will be probably in maybe 10 days or so, it'll be finished and I'll hand it over to the museum. I'll get some good pictures to show her of her legacy. My wife is my sailmaker. She does a really good job. She expected me to put the reef points on. I ain't gonna. Just not gonna have any reef points. Oh, I did look up Deborah Rose to make sure there was no workbook named that. There's a guy in Ireland who inherited a large boat from his family. And he's not a waterman or boatman at all. He's a restaurateur. We had a channel dug, brought the boat up into the channel, built it in, the concrete foundations, and everything, and turned it into a restaurant. It's named Deborah Rose. That's the only Deborah Rose I could find, so I feel safe calling it Deborah Rose. It's about, I would say, 50 or 60% scratch, the rest of it, an old Willie Bennett kit.
Anyone else besides Gene? Yep, okay. You're, yeah, if you don't mind.
So this is just my progress on my.
Not just.
Yeah, it is. This is my progress on the siren. Started working on the deck. Finished sanding it down. Now I'm going through the long tedious process of tree nailing it. I'm using bamboo that I bought like a 500 bamboo toothpicks, and so I'm cutting them down and making them into trennels, and I've got all the holes drilled now. I'm still making trennels to fill in. I did start progress on coppering. I actually had some rows done on the starboard side. And as I was going through and doing the deck, I scratched up all the plating. So I ended up taking that off. I'm gonna now wait until the deck is completed. And then I'll recopper at that point. But this is just kind of where I'm at. Not much progress from the last time I brought it. And I did bring in, Roland donated the figurehead to me, and I'm going to use that one versus the one that was in the kit.
Could I
My progress.
ask one of our members? I don't know if you one of our members.
I had a suggestion for Tom's Titanic, and since Joshua has the 3D printer, he can 3D print Kate and Leo for the bow.
I got a suggestion for you. One of our members, I've never done this before, but he
You gonna
demonstrated.
bring something up, or?
What was that?
Greg,
No, go ahead. I didn't know you were there. This will be quick.
Greg,
Here's another Willie. Everybody needs a Willie. There's my Willie. This the progress from last time. here.
Tom, I don't think they can hear you.
As usual, some things
I
came
can
out
hear
pretty
you,
good,
Tom,
some
but
things
they
not so
can't hear
good.
us.
I like the deck though. Didn't want. to
Tom, we
paint
can't
the
hear
deck
you now because you're
with that
muted.
Natural flavor.
There you go.
Got it all done. So, that's about all. Looks pretty good from about 2 feet away.
The camera kind of distorts it a little bit, yeah. Looks funny. All right,
We have another one over there.
which? Anyone else?
Greg,
Did you get some?
Yeah. I've got a disaster over here, but I'll be glad I think I solved the problem. It's, took this model, a couple of years ago for a friend of mine that worked at Ben's and was retiring. So I built this for a retirement gift. And this is, I'll tell you a little bit about it real quick. It's the new research vessel that Ben's has acquired. It's been in service now, like I said, about a couple of years. This was, and I didn't have the date when I built this, but anyway, he retired, and as a retirement gift, I decided I would build that since he was instrumental in getting the boat built for them. It was built in Canada. So I got a little pressed for time. It took me about 3 months to do this, so it's not perfect by any means. But one of the things I did, and I just wasn't thinking, was I built it in 2 lifts. So to the main deck and below was 1 lift, and then from the main deck up to the O1 level was another, and it was solid. And he went back to work for a few months at DIMS last week, and he brought the model over to put it back in his office. And when I went over to see him, there's a hairline crack where the interface of the two lifts came together. And it just made me sick. So I couldn't figure out why that cracked the way it did. But as would have it, we had an expert into those things, Mr. John Shevers, who told me this morning when I brought it in. He asked me, did I hollow those out? And the light bulb came on, and I didn't. And I made it. It's solid blocks on both of them. And I think what happened, even though I used Gorilla Glue and clamped it with under pressure with clamps and was satisfied with that, I think it was just too much mass there in the wood, and with the expansion and contraction, it cracked. So what I brought it in today for was hoping somebody could come up with a simple solution of maybe how I could fill that crack or whatever. But John gave me an idea, but I think I'll move along after that one of taking it one underneath and hollowing it all out again. So I think I'll just moving right along with that. But anyway, if anybody has an idea, I would certainly love to hear it. Only thing I know to do is I could extend the rub rail around and hide it. No one would know the difference. But this is a lesson learned. I haven't done that. Now I know why in the shipyard, when I went to the model shop, when they built lifts, they built them and they were hollow. I thought it was for weight. I guess it was more than weight. Because even with this little one, a large model that like we have downstairs, it would be a fair amount of expansion contraction that would crack things. So
It's nature. Grass, given time, grows through concrete.
it does.
Can't find nature. I like your idea of extending the line and just paint the forward end of it white.
Yeah, that's what it's just not like the real boat, but no one will know but me.
Obviously.
Well, you did say it only took you 3 months, right?
Took me 3 months. Yeah, 3 months of agony, and my wife,
Oh, okay.
me disappearing in the shop and not knowing where I was. So I guess she did know where I was, but yeah. So anyway, that's why I brought that today. If anybody wants to take a look, have any questions, I got some other things on it if you'd be interested. So
That down on the other side of the bridge.
yes, this has too much draft. The dock there at Vim's, it's over in Whitestone, is where they dock it now.
Letting for the recording, zoom in on some of it as well.
Oh, okay. Got some unique things with these cranes. It's pretty neat. I didn't have any drawings or anything. The only thing I had to build it from was a general arrangement drawing and some photographs. So that's what I built it from. It was reasonable.
What did they do with it?
It's not yet another Willie Bennett, right?
It's a research vessel.
What kind of research? I mean,
Fisheries,
okay.
biological research for the bay, that type of thing.
How big is that thing? How long?
How big is it?
90 feet.
Well, let's see. What I did is when I built that, in the interest of saving time, like I did with the block hull, I took the general arrangement drawings and had them increased in length. And 93 feet. Yeah.
That'd make a good radio control boat. If somebody could.
It would.
Hold the fiberglass.
Yeah, it would. It would be unique. My wife says it's the ugliest pretty boat she's ever seen. I guess, women.
It is very neat, though. My first impression is neat.
Well, yes, it's unusual. Kind of goes along the line of these crab boats you see with the same lines, but the bow is so strange on it, and it's got twin rudders on the back, and the prop is a big enclosure in the back. It's got thrusters underneath of it. You can't see them here, but they're there. That you can put it in position and keep it there. It stays within like 2 feet.
How many exist? How many were built by that Canadian firm? Was this one?
This is unique. Yes, they have others that are, well, I would call them similar, but they're not this ugly. You know?
Beautiful model.
Thanks for sharing.
The one thing they did do with this, which kind of fits into to what the reason for doing these models is that when Vim saw it, when I gave it to him at his retirement party, they kept it there and had it for new customers that were coming in. They do a lot of contract work at Vim's for these companies on the outside that want to, well, they can't afford a vessel, of course, so they rent. So they come to Vim's and rent to students, graduate students, and to do the research and so forth. But they really found this useful where all of the equipment was out on the deck. And rather than showing a pamphlet and maybe a video or something, they could see it real time. And they found that to be really neat and helpful with promoting the work.
For out-of-state guests, can you tell them what VIMS means?
Virginia Institute of Marine Science. I thought we all knew that, you know, being right here, but I'm sorry, guys. Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. My son works there, so that's so just common nature to me.
Yes.
Okay, any questions? Oh, one more thing. This goes along with John had last month. That excellent presentation he gave on lofting and lines and stability and things like that. I found my old Principles of Stability book. If anybody is interested in this, and it's something that mostly anyone can understand. You don't have to be an expert in that. And it works because when my son, when he bought his pleasure boat, he wanted to put a tower on the top for cobia fishing, and I used this to see what the right moment would be and so forth, and it works. So if anybody ever had a use for that, I got a Cliff's Notes version of it. But thanks to John for doing it in a professional way.
All right, I guess it's my turn.
You start with this or what's on them?
Yeah, just start with that. Well, not being one to let moss grow, after I finished the DE, I thought I would get back to the Olympia, which I haven't abandoned. But this was a project that I had conceived of many years ago. Well, not many years ago, but quite a while ago, with the cage mast I had built as a concept to see if I could do it. And I think I'd shown that before at the group. It's been a number of years. Well, anyways, this got put on the back shelf. And now the Olympia is back on the back shelf because this has captured my attention right now. This is going to be my rendition of the 1916 era USS Arizona. It's based upon the trumpeter kit, which I bought some time ago, and subsequently threw out about 80% of it, saved the bare hull, and that's where I started converting the 41 era Arizona back to its original configuration. A lot of changes had to be made to the basic hull. Some of the notable ones, of course, all of the 5-inch guns had to be moved from the upper deck down to the main deck in their own casements on this side of the hull. I reshaped the hull by the bow, the blisters on the side of the ship, which I'll talk about a little bit later, had to be cut down almost by half. This was, I guess, something that they had added to the 41 or the later Arizonas, both for, I guess, what, torpedo protection and or stability, more buoyancy. They added a large blister on the sides of the hulls. Well, a lot of that was not present when it was built. So I have some photos to kind of show where we got to this point. Another major consideration whether I would proceed with this project was whether or not I could produce or reproduce a deck. The trumpeter kit does have a wood deck option, but it was riffed with so many holes to accommodate the 41 version that it was unusable in this earlier version. So I attempted to rectify that by scanning and fixing and redoing the deck, which I will explain as we get to my share screen. Let me see here.
Gee, while you're bringing that up, are you doing this as a water line?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's, I'm going to place it in, okay, how do I get that to maximize?
Just
There we go. Okay, where is that picture? There we go. Yeah, I intend to do this as a water line set in water. And another reason I wanted to kind of do it on a smaller scale was the kind of practice for the Olympia, which I also am reconfiguring to a water line and put in bigger water. So I figure if I can challenge myself to building small water, I could scale it up to bigger water. So another learning tool. Besides, I got tired of making little ships, boats, which is why I ended up benching the Olympia in the first place in favor of the DE. So, you know, as long as you're moving forward on some project, I guess that all counts, right? This is the Arizona that everybody recognizes. This is the 41, kind of its final configuration. There was a lot of superstructure added. The cage masts were replaced by tripod mounted. A lot of myriad changes. The air components of the Arizona were added. And I wanted to take this all back. Here's another kind of a diagram of it showing the profile of the later one. I wanted to take it back to 1916. And this is the Arizona as it was originally conceived. This is a photograph probably from 16 or 17. And you can see the superstructure is considerably.
yeah.
What, this, get rid of that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, the superstructure is considerably cleaner. A lot less superstructure and nonsense going up on deck, which should make this a fairly simple project to finish. As you can see, one of the cage masts I have built on the model. There's another view of it. As you can see along here, the blister that was so pronounced on the later ship was built upon on top of this. It was kind of a concrete filled section to I guess ward off or to protect against torpedoes. Well, there wasn't. I have a picture which we'll get to, or a diagram. But yeah, there was an armor plate, but the armor consisted of not only steel, but a void filled with concrete, apparently. And here it is on the one of the, I don't know where it is. It's on a river. Okay, here is the diagram of the Arizona. The Arizona was a second of a two-class ship, the Pennsylvania class, and they were both fairly much identical in the construction. The Pennsylvania was built, I think, several years beforehand. The Arizona came along. What? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't, where was the Arizona built then? It was farmed out somewhere else. Yeah.
Brooklyn Navy Yard.
The bar bits for the 4-inch guns remain the same. The superstructure core still exists on the 41 Arizona, but is completely added to as time went on. I found that this picture, this drawing was an error compared to photographs, and you can see as I flicker back and forth, the change revolves around the placement of these two decks and the armored citadel. They were drawn up higher than was actually built. So I had to redraw this section of the artwork so that I could then use it to base my artwork for future brass works and so forth. So I had to make that correction. This is a profile of the new and old Arizona. Well, actually, it's the newer one, I say, the 41. And here you can see the outer blister, which was attached to this section, which was the original configuration of the hull. This was a section filled with some sort of material. I thought it was concrete. I think there was some reference to it over here, cement backing. It's what?
Behind
Yeah, but here's a 3-inch cement backing that they refer to. So there's the cement and they had wood. So I had to take the kit and just kind of cut the blisters off and rebuild those to reflect the earlier version of it. And this is a photograph kind of representing some of that work. I ended up cutting all the superstructure off, filling in all the voids, doing the blisters on the side, resharpened the bow, and moving all of the casemates down to the main deck, which actually on the 41 version, all the interior structures were still present. All the casemate structures, bulkheads and things, all they did was just basically plate over them, took the guns out. But if you look at the plan review drawings of the main deck, you can see all of the bulkheads were still there. And I was able to use that to then draw up plans to build the casemates that are seen here. And I just did that all in plastic, basically. Here we are adjusting primer to see what kind of progress I made. I had to redo the anchor holes there. They were incorrect. And all of these protrusions that were on the 41 had to be, I made a mold of them so that I could, in the future, then reapply them to the deck, because I ended up having to shave the deck clean so that my new deck would lay flat on it. So this was before that process. Oh, and portholes too. I added a bunch of portholes to it, and to keep continuity in the model, I made molds of the portholes so that I could cast them and cut them out and reapply them in the new locations. There was a whole another deck that I guess they had plated over and removed a lot of these portholes. So this was my porthole making jig, little brass tubing, and then I would place it over the porthole and sand it down till the rim was separated from the background. And these were applied where they needed to be. And they mimicked the original casting. The alternative would have been to redo all of them, and I didn't want to go to that extreme. All righty, the cage mast that everyone's familiar with that I built some years ago. And these are the brass renderings that I made to produce the superstructures, the new superstructures. I made them all up in brass. So I drew them up, etched them, and these are the shutter doors for the main deck gun casements. And here are the brass superstructures coming together. Now, an interesting note about this, I have two sets here, one on the boat, which is the correct one, and these, which, as it turned out, were incorrect. Last month, John did a talk about plans and scale and making sure that things were aligned. Well, I was very meticulous in ensuring that my drawings were scaled correctly. And I then produced these brass pieces based upon my accurately scaled plans. Well, when I put it on the boat, I discovered that they were too small, and I just could not figure out what the hell's going on. Well, it turns out that the plastic hull that Trumpeter produced in 1/200 scale ain't. So I had to again go back, regroup, take all my drawings for the deck, for the profiles, for the plan views, and rescale them to the hull, whatever scale it was. And then everything matched up and everything was good at that point. So, you know, the box says 1/200, take it with a grain of seawater or salt. Nothing comes out exactly unless you build it from scratch. Well, that's one of the small perils of starting with someone else's project, namely the Trumpeter kit. So all's well that ends well. So I had a nice practice with etching and soldering. So I went back and did it again. All right, getting to the deck. The deck was going to be a turning point, whether I moved forward or just went back to the Olympia. This is a scan of the original wood deck that's an option for this kit from Trumpeter. You can see it's got all the cutouts and holes and things representing the 41 version of the Arizona. This was not going to happen for me. This wouldn't work. And the idea of trying to refill all these holes with pieces of wood and stuff, it just wasn't going to happen. It was impossible. So I scanned this image, brought it into my Photoshop, and eliminated all of the protrusions that were not present on the 16 version. And you can see there were quite a few. And this is the deck that I have now. I tried various ways of reproducing it. I tried printing it on wood, on the back of the wood that the Trumpeter kit provided as a sample, and found that the ink wicked into the fibers of the wood too readily and was almost useless. I then decided to try artist paper, a heavy grade artist paper, and that proved to be the ticket. So what I have here is some samples of the artist paper printing, and one sealed with a clear, like dull coat or something like that. There's no problem of using glues or anything else to attach it to the model. And I had gone through an extensive testing program to try and solve that. Here is an overlay of the 16 version Arizona on top of the deck, and you can see where the holes line up and what I needed to add and remove. At this point, I then shaved the deck clean and was able to attach it. This is my media test strip. You can see a variety of hues and tints and things as I tried to use acrylics, dull coat lacquer, true color, clear, and different glues to see what the effects of the paper would be. And this drove my decision on which way to go. There were some calamitous results, especially the acrylic. It just wicked right in, changed everything. And so it was absolutely useless in this context. All right, here we go. Here's the deck, all attached, the clean shaved deck. and a clean slate ready to rebuild. And then from here, I was able to then move forward with the project. All right, just fast forward real quick. I cut out some of the holes where the existing decks protrusions with the 41 and 16 coincided. And since I did take a mold of the previous details to apply, I then cast them up in resin and started to reapply them to the deck on top, rather than try and cut the deck holes to fit around. It would have been impossible to coordinate and get everything just tidied up that close. So this was my solution to that project. And this is pretty much as you see it today. The casemates, the guns are in, and the deck is pretty much ready to be built upon. These are all the myriad little skylights, access ports, and so forth. And that's where we are today. Here are the cage masts and some of the etching art that I'll use to lace the cage mast like I had already previously done. And this is the beginning of the lacing diagram for the cage mast. It looks kind of like a bicycle wheel, and that you know, it just that's what lends its structural strength to it. And this represents those points which transit the entire length of the mast. The other points between, one will go about a third the way up, and the other one will go about 2/3 the way up, and stop at that point. So that's it. That's where I am with this project. And unless I get bored with it and get back to Olympia small boats, I'll continue with this. And that's all I have to say on that. And that's what I've got to show so far. Question?
On the cage mast, I'm new, so I wasn't around when you used the cage.
Oh, that sucks.
How do you make the cage mast? What did you use to do it? Here the wires.
The cage mast is all soldered together. I built a jig which anchored the top and bottom parts. I then also etched the intermediate rings with notches to capture the rods. And I think the rods were maybe 10 thousandths brass rod, less than 20 thousandths brass rod, and it's soldered. Yeah, once you start lacing it together, you know, you just make it taut, and, you know, and then solder one end and keep going around and around until it's all filled up. Well, I mean, that sounds easy, but it was kind of a pain in the butt. All righty. That's all.
Thank you.
That wasn't a presentation. Now, that was just a show and tell. We still have someone to talk, right?
Yep, we do. I'm gonna suggest another short break before we do that. We got one chat message here to read. What does that have to say?
Sleep, wake him up.
Okay. Just Joshua saying he had to sign off.